Namaskar, Nileshok, in another episode. Let's get into it. All right. Yudhishthir's Rajyabhishek and Saptarshis in Magha. The Mahabharat war is over and Yudhishthir is coronated as a king. Now, broadly speaking, when we refer to the timing of Saptarshis in Magha, I will mention exactly who is referring to it. That is the time of Yudhishthir's coronation, but you can almost take that as a century after that. Many times this reference comes in the context of King Parikshit when he was ruling or when he was ready to pass on the throne to his son Janmejay. Okay, so think of this as that time. So it could be the timing of Yudhishthir coronation, or it could be the time of the coronation of Janmejaya, okay, the king of Parikshit. So, but it's the same century, and that kind of resolution is actually sufficient in looking at this problem of Saptarshis in Magha. So let's understand what the issue is. And for our discussion, I begin with one of the comment from one C.V. Kumar, who wrote as a comment to one of my YouTube videos. He says, "Sir, how," and I forgot now which video he wrote this comment to, but that's not even important for discussing this issue. C.V. Kumar writes, "Sir, how can we take Bhagavad Shloka, that is essentially saying how do we interpret this shloka, or how does this evidence corroborates or not corroborates the year 5561 BCE as the year of Mahabharat war?" So the specific references he is providing: 12.2.313233, that is to say the Skanda 12 of Bhagavad Puran, and then Adhyay 2, that's the second Adhyay, and then Shlok 31, 32, 33. And he is quoting specific Shlok number 32. Okay, so he says this refers to sages moving from Magha to Purvashada, and Nanda dynasty begins. Okay, we will refer to this verse again. And so he's referring to that verse number 32. Yada Maghabhyo Yasyanti Purvashada Maharshaya Tada Nandat Prabhrutesha Kalir Vruddhi Gamishyati. So this is this verse from Srimad Bhagavad Puran, and a crude and loose translation is this: when the great sages of the Saptarshi constellation pass from Magha to Purvashada, Kali will have his full strength, beginning from King Nanda and his dynasty. Okay, so Magha was the timing of Yudhishthira, also Parikshit, also Janmejaya. And from there, when the Saptarshis moved all the way from Magha to Purvashada, the Kali will have its full strength. Now, Kali has already begun, by the way, okay? But this particular shlok says from the timing of King Nanda, so Kali will really have another acceleration, let's say, in exhibiting its characteristics further. So Purvashada, according to this shlok, is the timing of King Nanda, that is to say when Saptarshis were supposedly in Purvashada, that is the time of King Nanda. And so when Saptarshis were in Magha, that was the time of Yudhishthir or Parikshit. Okay, we are taking this together because the resolution that we have available with this reference is of about 100 years, and we'll see why that is so. Just to understand the context, let's go one shlok before this. Okay, so it says Yada Devarshaya Sapta Maghasu Vicharantihi. Okay, and Tada Pravrutastu Kalirdvada Shatab, Vadashabda Shatatmakaha. Again, a crude translation. When the constellation of the seven sages, you can think of this as a Saptarshi, okay, is passing through the lunar mansion of Magha, the nakshatra Magha, the age of Kali begins. Now, this is interesting, okay, because the Kali Yuga indeed began when the Mahabharat war was over. On the last day of the Mahabharat war, there are numerous references spread throughout the entire text of Mahabharat that points to this last day, last and the 18th day of the Mahabharat war, when the historical Kali Yuga began. There are all kinds of yuga. By my count, approximately 26 plus 10, so that's about 36. Granted, there could be some overlap, but those many distinct references from our ancient texts. Out of that, the historical Kali Yuga, or at least the Kali Yuga that we refer to in the context of Mahabharat, Mahabharat tells us it began on the last and the 18th day of the war. Okay, those who are curious to know more, they may want to, or they should be picking up the book written by Jivan Rao called Yuganta in English. In Marathi, it has been translated as Kali Yugacha Arambha, published by Param Mitra Prakashan. In English, it is published by Subbu Publications, and it's also available via Amazon, on Amazon. To understand why the Kali Yuga began on the last and the 18th day of the Mahabharat war, and then of course the additional internal evidence shows that that day was 2nd November 5561 BCE. But this reference of Saptarshin Magha, or Saptarshin Magha moving to Saptarshin Uttarashada, or what was it, Purvarashada, and you are going to get some variations. Sometime Uttarashada, sometime Shravana Nakshatra instead of Purvashada, and so on. Okay. In any case, none of this would matter in the end as I explain this. So even this Srimad Bhagavad reference acknowledges that the Kali began at the time of the Mahabharat war, at the time of Yudhishthira. Okay. All right. Now let's go 2 verses before this to understand this reference. So we looked at 31, 32. Let's go even a few verses before, 27, 28 of the same chapter. Just to save time, I will not read these 2 verses. You can always pause it. Okay, it's not difficult to read. Saptarshanam tuyo purvo drishyate udito divi, and a crude translation is provided at the bottom. I'll just read that because it's critical, because that distinguishes why people do what they do and how it is not necessarily explicitly provided in the original shloka. Of the 7 stars, referring to Saptarshis, forming the constellation of 7 sages, you can read that whole thing as Saptarshi. Pulaha and Krutu are the first to rise in the night sky. That is what is referred to in the first line. Okay, so like a 2, like a plural is used there. Udito, yo, purvo, right? And so that Saptarshi is referring that Saptarshi. If you, and just to give indication so people know, actually people should know. Okay, those which has 2 stars, they first rise in the east, and so on. Okay. Now the next one that I have put it into the red color, it was there in the original translation from where I pulled it. I think I pulled it from the translation provided by ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. This particular line is not given as an exact translation. For example, Tayastu Madhye Nakshatram Drushyate Yat Samam Nishi. So, a nakshatra that is seen between these two stars, that kind of is given, okay? But it is interpreted, and that's not bad, because when we look at some reference, it's a demand on ourselves that we must turn that into a something that's empirically testable, measurable. That's what Galileo used to say. He says, measure things that you can measure, okay, and turn those things which cannot be measured into measurable things. So it's a good attempt. Okay, so it says, if a line running north and south were drawn through their midpoint, their meaning between those two stars, okay, the Pula and Kratu of the Saptarshis, whichever of the lunar mansion, that is the whichever of the nakshatra this line passes through, is said to be ruling asterism of the constellation of that time, a ruling nakshatra of the Saptarshi of that time. Okay, so, and we are going to look at the visual explanation too, so hopefully that helps. The next, it says, the 7 sages, that is Saptarshi, will remain connected with that particular lunar mansion for 100 human years. Currently, during your lifetime, they are situated in the nakshatra called Magha. Now, I don't know exactly who is saying this to who, but somebody is saying this to very likely Parikshit or possibly Yudhishthir. Okay, it wouldn't matter, because remember, the claim is that the Saptarshis would stay in that nakshatra for 100 years. So we can take that as a combined time of Yudhishthir, Parikshit, Janmejaya, and that's sufficient. Now, this is from Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's look at the similar reference, just with a slight modification from Vishnu Puran. Now, actually, if you take this interpretation of a line drawn between those two easternmost stars of Saptarshi, and if you want to see what different nakshatras this particular interpretation will point to, actually, guys, if you even have a very basic elementary understanding of astronomy, all you have to do is close your eyes. Imagine this circle of the NCP, North Celestial Pole. Okay, that is essentially the circle of the precession in the polar region. Okay, where the NCP, North Celestial Point, just keeps on moving and completes one cycle in 26,000 years. And just imagine that point, the point of NCP at any given time. And imagine yourself, you drawing a line starting with NCP that passes through between these two stars, easternmost star of Saptarshi, and then extend it until it hits the ecliptic, and try to see which nakshatra area or which nakshatra yogatara it passes through. And that's essentially the nakshatra of the Saptarshi. Okay, and if you again understand the position of the precession circle, the polar circle, the pole star circle, the circle of NCP, if you understand the relative position of Saptarshis, and if you can visualize drawing a line, you will realize that that particular line is not going to go through all the nakshatras. Okay, now it may not be exactly easy to point out where it would go through. Now, because I have done this exercise, I can say it, but one can easily say, because knowing the relative distance of Saptarshi, their movements with respect to NCP, in fact, Saptarshis are not moving anywhere. It is the NCP that is moving, a small circle, okay, about what? 23 degrees in radius, if that helps, if you understand what I mean by that. Okay, think of this as a 23 degree latitude from not 23, yeah, 23 degrees worth of latitude from 90 degree, okay, and going outward. Anyways, I'm going to show you the visual picture and it will become clear, but this was the explanation for those folks who are deep into visual and Indian astronomy. In the long run, none of this is going to matter, but that's precisely the reason why we need to understand it, so that this reference has no astronomy standing. To understand it, we must understand astronomy. Interesting, right? Okay. Now, I don't see anything in this discussion worthy of a peer-reviewed research paper, but then I am different. There are many folks, okay, who are very high on the Kool-Aid of the so-called peer-reviewed papers, and in this case, I would say, although the ultimate inferences that have been drawn by this research team are bizarre, illogical, unsubstantiated, to say the least, for our purposes, I like to congratulate them that they have written this paper, okay? Because there is someone sensible other than me who is saying the same thing, and at least for that I am thankful to them. This is a paper with the title Saptarshi's Visit to Different Nakshatras, Subtle Effect of Earth's Precession, written from the TIFR team. Okay, so Mayank Vahiya, who I know him and I have had communication in the past, and then there are a few other authors. I'm not going to read the whole paper, but those who are interested can read this whole paper. Just Google it or find your resources. You must learn how to find a paper. Okay, so that's the paper. So we don't need to read anything here other than it just mentions what is Saptarshis and what is Nakshatra. Now, this paper cites a slightly modified verse that occurs in Vishnu Puran. Okay, so you can read that. Saptarshinam tuyo purvo drushyante yudito divi. This is very similar. Tayostu madhye nakshatram drushyate yat samam nishi, etc. The last line, it says Tetu parikshite kale. Okay, and what is interesting, I'll quickly jump into the translation for that reason. Okay, so that Maga Swasa Dvijottamaha. Okay, Tama. Take those two stars of Saptarshi, which are seen first after the rise, the nakshatra which is seen in the middle of it at an equal distance at the night. Now the equal distance, okay, it's one interpretation here, okay, is said to be the residence of Saptarshi for 100 years of man's life. O great Brahmin, they were in Magha, that is Regulus, at the time of Parikshit. Now Regulus is the Yogatara for the nakshatra Magha. So actually it's a space of about 13 degree, but if you want to specifically identify that area, you do it with the help of Yogatara, and that Yogatara is Regulus. Again, very similar to what is given in Bhagavad Puran. Okay, so do not count this as, oh wow, it's mentioned twice. Well, it's good, but it's exactly the same thing. And a wrong thing, that is, or a thing that we don't even know how to make a sense out of it, whether it is mentioned one time, two times, 5 times, doesn't matter. It doesn't help us. A simple point, guys, lost on many who are doing research, many in the academic community, many in the scientific community, okay, many in the Indology community. Let's go next. Now there is one what you call tika, tippanni, okay, and Sanskrit I will skip, but I'll quickly read some portions of the English translation. Following is the characteristic of progress of Kali age. The Saptarshi is a group of 7 stars in the shape of a cart. The first part consists of 3 stars, blah blah blah. They are Marichi, that is Alkade, and sometime you'll see some variations in these names too. So become comfortable rather than becoming naive, or rather acting naive, childish, foolish, and idiotic. The names do change for these 7 stars. Okay, some of the names do not change, such as for Mizar and Alkor, you are practically going to find always the Vasishta and Arundhati. but sometimes not so for the other stars. There are some variations. In any case, notice that star Alkate, that is the one end of Saptarshi, and the other side is that Pulaha and Kratu, that is the Merak and Dubai, okay, in the northeast or to the east. Okay. Take north-south line passing through the middle of Pulaha Kratu, which is what we already discussed, which rises first and the stars next to them. Whichever nakshatra out of Ashwini, etc., this line meets, it will remain in the same nakshatra for 100 years. Okay. Now, this is a translation by that individual 1962 of somebody's commentary. What I can say, or somebody with astronomy knowledge 101 will able to say, at least with this interpretation, there is not a fat chance of this line passing through the NCP and then passing between these two easternmost star of Saptarshi ever reaching the region of Ashwini Nakshatra. But that is what this commentator is writing. Now, what does it, guys, tell us? This is not to hit at this particular commentator, but to bring the reality to all of us. A beautifully written commentary in fluent Sanskrit, but this individual definitely does not understand astronomy, not even the basic astronomy. If he or she did, the person would not have written what he or she has written at the end, specifically saying whichever nakshatra out of Ashwini from the whole 27 nakshatra this line meets, it will remain in that same nakshatra for 100 human years. That is simply not possible. It's astronomy 101 going with this specific interpretation. We are going to look at the visual pictures to understand this. Now, this research group from TIFR writes relevance for timekeeping. So I thought I will read that. All of you, those who are interested, can read the original paper in full. Like most ancient civilizations, Indians were keen observers of astronomical events. Well, I don't know any other civilization which is more sophisticated, more precise than Indian astronomy, but that not being the main subject today, let's move on. Some non-astronomical event as a chronological pointer seems very uncharacteristic for ancient Indian civilization. Thus, we believe that there should be some astronomical base to the apparently false movement of Saptarshi through different nakshatras. So, thankfully, this research team recognizes that whereas the Purana are making statements of Saptarshis moving through practically all these 27 nakshatras, this team realizes rightfully, correctly, and thankfully that that is simply not possible. So that's why they are saying apparently false movement of Saptarshis through different nakshatras. Although that is true, there must be some astronomy basis. Otherwise, why would they use some astronomy pointer in pointing to a specific event such as the Mahabharata war, or timing of Yudhishthir, or timing of Parikshit, or later on timing of Nanda? Okay. All right. So keep this in the back of your mind to understand the visual explanation of this. Now, in their paper, they also do a good job in showing the limits of these movements. Okay, so pay attention here. So for example, they are showing a current scenario. They call it 2000 AD, like 2000 CE. We are in 2025. Not practically no difference if you understand the astronomy cycles, especially of 26,000 year long cycle of the precession of the Earth's axis. Okay. So from Polaris, which is our current pole star, they have drawn a line now that is passing through those two stars. And let me show you the cursor and see if that helps. Okay, so maybe my cursor is not helping. Okay, here, I don't know if we can see the cursor, but these are the two stars of the Saptarshis. These are the four stars of the Saptarshis, the pan, and then the three stars, 1, 2, 3, are the stars like a handle. They form the handle. This here, okay, this basically is a Vasishta and Arundhati, the middle star in the handle. Okay, all right. So from Polaris, you are drawing a line that goes to these between these two stars, and if you extend it further towards the ecliptic, to see which area of the nakshatra space it lands into, it passes through, it pierces, and the answer is in our times, it goes near the Yogatara of Purva Falguni. Okay, near the Yogatara, you can practically take this as the region of Purva Falguni Nakshatra. So, yes, using this scheme and interpretation, it is one of the many interpretations, guys, keep that in mind, that it does go through Purva Falguni. Okay, now they also experiment. Again, I'm glad they did it, but somebody who has a basic understanding of astronomy, and I feel confident that these guys do, but they are doing it for the benefit of the masses. Okay, it is not even worth, in my mind, a research paper. I'm glad they did it. Okay, so that a very simpleton folks can see what is actually happening, and do not perpetuate this myth of Saptarshis actually going through 27 nakshatras as done, unfortunately, by many Mahabharat dating researchers. I don't know their motivation, I don't understand their logic, rational, but they have done it. So now what they have done in this picture is, for example, if you go back to 2150 BC, like say 2000 BC, which is what? About 4000 years in the past, 4000 years ago. And at that time, so about like a 2150 BC, the point of NCP, North Celestial Pole, was not at Tuban but near Tuban. It was at Tuban around 3000 BC, and the Tuban, actually, it is a Western astronomy word, but guess what? It comes from a Dhruva, so Dhruva becomes Dhrub, and then Thrub and Thruban. But that's another interesting linguistic subjects that I will bypass for now. So 2150, the NCP was near Tuban, not at Tuban. And then if you, from that point, you draw a line that passes through the two easternmost stars of the Saptarshi Mandal, then it hits the Pushya Yogatara, okay, the region of Pushya Nakshatra. So yes, Saptarshis using this interpretation at some point were in Pushya Nakshatra, for example, around 2000 BC. We saw in our times they were near Purva Falguni. Okay, so you can see the Purva Falguni Nakshatra there too. So essentially we are looking at a space of Punarvasu, Pushya, Ashlesha, Magha, Purva Falguni, and we can stop there, because that is essentially the only small region, okay, out of this entire 360 degree of nakshatra space of 27 nakshatra, namely here from Punarvasu, Pushya, Ashlesha, Magha and Purva Falguni. So namely 5 nakshatra space out of 27, that's where this interpretation or nakshatra saptarshis in some nakshatra will take place. And one of them happens to be Magha, by the way, and that's what the reference is. There is a other reference to Purvashada. And in some other variations, Pathabhed, you also see Shravana Nakshatra, Shravishtha and all of that. The point is, there is no fat chance of Saptarshi being into any of these nakshatras, any of these meaning Purvashada or Shravana, using this particular interpretation, because they are going to stay limited between Punarvasu and Purva Falguni, and that is what this research team is showing, and they have done a good job of it. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And now in the table form, they are essentially showing, okay, look, we are looking at the pointer where a line drawn from the NCP passing through the easternmost 2 stars of Saptarshi extended to the ecliptic region, which nakshatra space or which nakshatra yogatara it hits, and the answer is Pollux, which is one of the 2 stars of Gemini, or our Punarvasu nakshatra. Punarvasu nakshatra is defined with 2 stars but also 4 stars. We will not go there. So Pollux, they say around 4600 let's say 4600 BCE. That's correct. Okay. Now I have verified this. I don't even remember when, but let's imagine, say something like 20, 30, 40 years ago, and that's correct. And I don't remember exactly timing of this paper, but again, that does not matter. Sometime doing the same research for a validation purposes is a good one. Okay. So even in somebody wants to test whether the other person, whatever he or she is saying, is this true. So they have done a good job there. 4600 BCE, Pollux was indeed falling into that line. Now now they say before 8000 BC, Castor, okay, the other star of Punarvasu, the line would have hit that. Let me tell you, that is not true. The line drawn from any point of NCP through the entire cycle of 26,000 years, and then that line passing through the first easternmost stars of Saptarshi, will never hit Castor Yogatara. That, okay? So they're saying before 8000, maybe they didn't test it. I don't know what it is. I'm telling you, I have tested it. It will never go and hit, that line will hit Castor, okay, the Yogatara. Ditto for, actually, I will go to the bottom and it says, Purva Falguni, so like a Delta Leonis or Theta Leonis. Okay, the Purva Falguni Yogatara is called Josma, for example. Okay, it will this line going through the NCP and passing between the two easternmost star of Saptarshi ever hit Yogatara of Purva Falguni? The answer is no, if you take Josma as the Yogatara. So here they are suggesting it will hit in future. Maybe they mean in future it might hit, and they have not tested it. Well, I have tested it. I'm saying they will never hit, the line will never hit Josma. Okay, that is the Yogatara of Purva Falguni. Now in between, what they're saying is correct. For example, Pushya will be around 2200, 2100, Ashlesha around this, and so on. And now let's come at Magha. Now, because that's the description, right? A line going through the easternmost two stars and hitting Nakshatra Magha was the timing of Yudhishthira. Bingo! Okay, that's like 1000 BC, and I don't know what these guys said. I forgot. But if somebody is in their naivety and childishness is thinking, oh, therefore Mahabharat war and time of Yudhishthir at 1000 BCE, well, there were some archaeologists who indeed proposed that. Thankfully, they had a wisdom, at least after a long time, to take back their claims. The likes of Professor B.B. Lal or likes of Professor S.R. Rao and Sri Vamadeva Shastriji, David Frowley, brought it to my attention that actually they did take their claims back. Okay? That they said, well, based on some initial thinking, they had thought of it as 1000 BC as the timing of Mahabharat, but now both of them, S.R. Rao and Professor B.B. Lal, unfortunately are no longer with us, but they did retract their claims. And I think this is a very important news that we need to communicate to the archaeology community, which appears to be resistant to change. Okay, I have, other than B.B. Lal, I have yet to see an archaeologist who has retracted his or her naive claims. Okay, anyways, so this one points to 1000 BC. Now this may be an interesting project, why somebody thought in the Puranic updates time, that hey, maybe Mahabharat happened in 1000 BC. That will be interesting. But if you look at the entire Mahabharata evidence, you are not going to find even a single reference, astronomy or otherwise, that will take you to anywhere close to 1000 BC. Let me repeat, all the references of a Mahabharata text, astronomy or otherwise, none of them will take you any time after 4500 BCE. Period. No ifs, no buts. And if you have someone that is also sensible, has some scientific acumen, some sense of Vijnana Buddhi, a decent sense of Tarka Shastra, and a decent expertise in Tantra Yukti, which is to say understand empiricism, understand objective testing, bring it on. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now we are going to look at the visual one, which is to say this is how you have to visualize that interpretation. That is one of the many interpretations, okay? That what it means when you say Saptarshi in a certain nakshatra. Because the Saptarshi calendar that is referred to, where each nakshatra is assigned for 100 years, and thus 27 times 100 gives you 2700 year cycle, is not referred to anywhere in the Bhagavad Purana references or anywhere in the Vishnu Purana references. So keep this in mind. It is the likes of us, not me, okay, the Mahabharata researchers, Purana researchers, who are trying their best to connect the dot, come up with multiple different interpretations to make sense of what is being said. So one such interpretation, the one that we just looked at, imagine a line that is going through somewhere in between the easternmost two stars of Saptarshi, in this case Kratu and Pula, those are the easternmost stars, okay? So this is how the picture would look like. Now what we are going to do is we are going to take this line, and now notice, if you can see, this is this precession cycle, okay? This is the pole cycle, or you can call this a cycle of NCP, North Celestial Pole, okay? Because of precession, this plus sign is going to go move around. This is where Earth's axis is pointing at any point, and the cycle is completed in 26,000 years. So what I'm showing you here is the broadest point, you know, the farthest point, like this is along the diameter and kind of away from Saptarshis, okay? So closest of Saptarshi would be like here, but I'm deliberately taking away from Saptarshi, and that tells you the extent to which this interpretation of a straight line passing through between the two easternmost stars is valid. Where is it valid? I already explained it. So, but I'm now showing you the visual. So think of the extreme diametric point of this circle of the NCP, because due to the precession, and from there, let's say when the NCP, right now it is here, but if and when it is here, and it will indeed go there at some point, from there I have started drawing a line which also goes through these two stars of Saptarshi, the easternmost star, and if I extend it towards the ecliptic to understand which nakshatra space or a nakshatra yogatara it pierces, it takes me close to Purva Falguni, and that's what I showed it. That's what this research team from TIFR has shown it. Now, if you take the other extreme, which is the other side, where also at some point this NCP star position would be there, which is to say the Earth's axis would be pointing towards that. So from that point, if you draw a line, and in such a way that it also passes through between these two stars of Saptarshi, and then you extend it further, okay, notice I have passed it like to the extreme of this, okay, and for a reason, to show the extreme limiting possibility. It will go to this star, Punarvasu star here, but not the other Punarvasu star, okay, and that's what I showed you in that table. It will never go to Punarvasu 2. So this is essentially from Punarvasu 1, okay, to then Pusha, to then Ashlesha, to Magha, to the area of Purva Falguni is the only region where you are going to see, astronomy speak, a Saptarshi in a certain nakshatra per this interpretation. It is not valid for remaining, that is namely 27 minus 5 nakshatras, okay, keep this in mind. Now, it is important, this is from this paper, by the way, from the TIFR team. It is important to note that the original reference in Vishnu Puran does not explicitly mention the exact nature of the pointer. Understand this, okay? This is what I'm saying. So this is one interpretation, by the way, that it goes through in the middle or it goes through between those two stars, okay? Most interpretations take the pointer as either line passing through first two stars or north-south line passing through center of the two stars, okay? Center of any two stars or the first two stars, it's not clear, okay? Or any particular star. Anyways, the ambiguity of the original reference leaves a lot of scope for other possible interpretations, and stay tuned because I am going to show you one such interpretation of mine. Now, is this required to boost the already solid case of 5561 BCE? The answer is absolutely not. This is not a reference internal to Mahabharata text. This is very likely from the later traditions trying to make sense of Mahabharata dating. So people possibly propose different things. Okay, likes of Varahamir has made lot of attempts to understand astronomy evidence with little success, I might add. Okay, and there are many others, okay, who are trying to make sense of Mahabharata or Ramayana astronomy evidence. Anyways, so the ambiguity of the original reference leaves a lot of scope for other possible interpretations. I'm going to show you one of mine. Why not, right? As seen above, few commentaries take the pointer to be passing through the center of the bowl of the Big Dipper. Okay, so there are others, I don't know who they are. They take it the line passing through sort of the center of this whole Saptarshis. And in my personal private discussions with many individuals, sometimes people who are Sanskrit experts, other time who are astronomy experts, other times who are kind of experts in both, other times Mahabharata enthusiasts, other times Mahabharata dating researchers. Okay, I have seen all possible interpretations, and I'm going to give you one more. Okay, so some people consider going through the center of the bowl of the Big Dipper. Okay, also we note these authors write of this from TIFR that neither shlok nor commentary make explicit mention of any cycle of 2700 years. I mentioned that just briefly, right? Or puts any constraint that the Saptarshi should visit each and every nakshatra. Okay, so keep that in mind, that the Bhagavata Puran and Vishnu Puran references, they themselves do not explicitly refer to 2700 year cycle. Okay, keep that in mind. And this research team has beautifully captured that point and made it available to us. Okay, so now let's get to my interpretation, and this is for fun. Okay, I will repeat this particular reference, and because it cannot be truly objectively tested, it's not going through all the 27 nakshatras, it only goes through 5 nakshatras. It's not very clear which line we are drawing, how to draw this. In fact, the Bhagavad Puran or Vishnu Puran references themselves are interpretations, if you understand it, because these are a Smriti Grantha and they get updated. And again, people's attempt to make sense of what might have happened or when the Mahabharata war might have happened, and in trying to make sense of it, they're trying this. Okay, but just something I found very interesting. Again, I found it long time ago. In fact, I thought it's not even worthy of a mention, but in spite of my multiple lectures, multiple videos, blogs mentioning that this is not a truly astronomy phenomenon and is not to be taken with naivety and a very simplistic sense, people keep on asking questions like this C.V. Kumarji asked. Okay, so I thought I will make a vlog or whatever you want to call it on this video on this. So let's see, can we have any interpretation for these Saptarshis passing through nakshatras that would in principle corroborate 5561 BC? Lo and behold, just like we drew a line from the point of north celestial pole at any given time, then making it pass through the two easternmost star, this Kratu and Pulaha. Okay, so if it was somewhere here or here, or even here we can do this, like we can take this star and kind of make it go through this and see where it lands. Okay, and somebody interested can do that. Okay, because remember, how is this motion, that V shape that I showed you? The motion is simply going to go back and forth, like a wiper on your windshield. back and forth, back and forth. It's not going to go through the complete circle. Again, this is basic astronomy 101. But back to this. Now, what if you draw a line through the north celestial pole point that passes through the other extreme of Saptarshi, which is to say the star Alked? Okay, again, sometimes the names Sanskrit name identification, the Rishi name identification may vary, so I'll stick with Alked. Okay, and then you extend that line the way I have shown it all the way to the ecliptic and thus to the nakshatra region. What do you get? And let me show you. I am showing it to you. If you draw a line in 5561 BCE, beginning with the north celestial point that beautifully passes through Alked and it directly hits the Yogatara of a Magha. Bingo! Time for claps. Okay? Now, how do we know that it directly hits? Remember, it's a sphere. Okay? So, we are drawing kind of a straight line on a sphere. Bit tricky. Okay, it comes out as a curve, just like imagine you flying from London to New York, okay, or London to San Francisco, or from Frankfurt to Denver. Pick a route of your choice, and what do you see? Actually, the path of the aeroplane looks kind of like a curvy, because it is going by the shortest possible distance, but a shortest possible distance on a sphere can be a curve. Okay, that's the point. Anyways, how do we verify that actually it is passing through that? Well, remember, north celestial point is that 0 point, okay, or the 90, whichever way you want to look at it. So that we don't need to look at, but 2 points define a line, okay. And now look at the right ascension for star Alked in 5561 BCE. It is 2 hours 54 minutes. And we can be very happy with a resolution of 1 arc minute, because that is a natural eye resolution, the naked eye resolution in the sky. And then go look below at that rectangle and look at the right ascension of Regulus, the Yogatara of Magha, in the year 5561 BCE. What do you find for right ascension? 2 hours 54 minutes. For Alked, 2 hours 54 minutes. A longitudinal line, okay, think of this as a meridian, you can essentially draw starting with the north celestial pole, passing through Alked and then passing through Magha. If somebody takes this interpretation, like that is to draw a line that starts with the north celestial pole and passes through the extreme westernmost star of Saptarshi, namely Alked, and just go and see where it hits, guess what? At the time of Mahabharata, it was hitting nakshatra Magha, as stated in Bhagavad Puran, as stated in Vishnu Puran, but of course with my interpretation for drawing the line. I hope you enjoyed it. Quick summary. Saptarshi Nakshatra calendar has nothing, nada, to do with astronomical motion or motions of stars, nakshatras, or pole points. Just like we use 7 planets, okay, to give the 7 names for the 7 days of the week, and then thus we use it as a unit to define a week and explain the week. Similarly, Saptarshi along with nakshatra, 27 nakshatra were combined, and each nakshatra were assigned 100 years, just like each day we assign about 24 hours, and it was used to create a calendar count of 2700 years, guys. Don't read much more into it other than that. So therefore I said 27 nakshatras are made use of to provide a count of 2700 years, and you can repeat it again. Not unlike 7 planets are made use of to provide a count of 7 days, which we repeat. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday again, and we continue. Same thing. You may begin with the Mrugashirsha Nakshatra, go all the way to Rohini, okay, 2700 years done, and start counting from Mrugashirsha again. If you start with Ashwini, Start with that, count that for 100 years, then call it Bharani, and then Kritika, and then Rohini, and so on. Go through 2700 years, and that gives you 27 nakshatras, rather 100 years each for each nakshatra. It gives you a count of 2700 years. Not any different than using 7 planets for making a count of 7 days of the week. Okay. Various interpretation exist to make sense of Saptarshi Magha reference from Puranas, specifically from Bhagavad Puran and Vishnu Puran. It may have occurred in some other Puranas. I don't recall exactly right now, but be it as it may, even if it occurs, it essentially repeats what is being said by these 2 Puranas. Now, TIFR paper, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research Research Group paper, summarizes the outcome of one of the many interpretations of Saptarshi Nakshatra movement. They do a good job. They very emphatically mention how this motion of the straight line drawn through NCP through the 2 stars will not go beyond Punarvasu on one side and not go beyond Purva Falguni on the other side. So it's going to remain restricted in this region of 5 nakshatras. Do go through the original paper. You'll realize again this notion of Saptarshi staying in 1 nakshatra, even in this 5 nakshatra space for 100 years, is also not true. Okay, that has nothing. Therefore, I'm saying go back to the first bullet here. Saptarshi Nakshatra calendar has nothing, nada, to do with the astronomical motions of stars, nakshatras, or pole points. However, if you still feel gung-ho, just like C.V. Kumar asked me, hey, what to do with this Bhagavad Puran or Vishnu Puran reference? He asked about the Bhagavad Puran, but I gave a Vishnu Puran reference also given by these TIFR individuals. In fact, I copied from there. Okay. In the context of Mahabharata dating and what to make of it, or can you make anything with it? No, I mean, you have got lemon. Can you make a lemonade? Kind of a type of question. So here I provide my interpretation, and as I have shown, if you draw a line through NCP that passes through the other extreme of Saptarshi, through Alked, the extreme westernmost star of the Saptarshi Mandal, and then you extend it all the way and try to see which nakshatra it hits in 5561 BCE. Now, Bhagavad Puran and Vishnu Puran say it should hit Magha. Okay. I am taking 5561 BCE, starting with the NCP that existed in 5561 BCE, drawing a straight line that goes through the westernmost star of Saptarshi Alked and extend it all the way to ecliptic, and lo and behold, it hits the Yogatara of Nakshatra Magha, namely Regulus. So I provide interpretation that beautifully corroborates 5561 BC with Saptarshi Magha references of Vishnu and Bhagavad Purana, of course with my specific interpretation. On the other hand, using any of the other interpretation, no Harika Lal, that is to say any existing Mahabharata dating researchers or those who are no longer around us, have successfully shown a line passing through those 2 easternmost stars or through the middle of the to the belly of the bowl of the Saptarshi area, hitting Magha for whatever year they are claiming. And by the way, they can try drawing through NCP and Alked and see if it hits Magha as well. They are welcome to do that. So among all the different interpretations, the only one interpretation that at least does succeed to show the Saptarshi in Magha validating their specific year is 5561 BCE. Time for claps, guys. Time for cheers. Okay? All right. So with that, I am done with this episode. Again, you want to know for yourself the beautiful 200, 300 plus descriptions, astronomy descriptions of Mahabharata, or 600, close to 600 plus descriptions of Ramayana. Get these books from Subbu Publications, and if you are outside India, from Amazon. And with that, I am going to stop. I'll see you soon, shortly, in another episode and on another interesting subject. I don't know what it is. We will see. Talk to you soon.